I think a great place for us to start right now would be with a caller, Xeno, who says that they think it says your epistemology is flawed, and they can explain why theirs is correct. Is that aimed at a specific one of us, or just like broadly?
I don't know the two of you, so I have no idea. But I do know that you guys are atheists, correct?
Yes.
So yeah, we are. So hold on, I'm already in a really weird. We're already in really weird territory, and we haven't even started the conversation.
Why is that?
Because you know that my epistemology is flawed.
Can I ask you to be pragmatic? Can you just be pragmatic about it and leave the emotions out? So why are you already in a weird space?
Hold on, Xeno. This isn't. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to be offensive in any way. I'm just saying it's a really. It's a rocky territory when the claim is that our epistemology is flawed, but you don't know what my epistemology is, right? It seems pretty. Seems like a pretty normal thing, right? To object with, but go ahead. I'll let you go ahead. I just think that's important to point that flag.
The only reason I say your epistemology is flawed is because you're an atheist, and the thing is, I used to be atheist as well. So let me just jump right into it. Don't you agree we need to define our terms before we start? Like, what is a god?
That's exactly why I raised the flag there, precisely, because we should define what my epistemology is before you make claims about it, right? So I think we're on a par here.
And really quickly, before you keep going, Xeno, just like so what this show is about is people call in, they talk about what they believe and why. So when somebody calls and says they used to be an atheist and now they're not, I immediately want to just steer this conversation to beginning with what convinced you that a god is
what convinced me was, one day I was hitting the bowl in the bathroom, dude, and I was sitting there thinking, so everything has a beginning, everything. And I'm a programmer, by the way, and this also got me jumping out as an atheist position. I jumped out of it because of programming and just thinking that everything has a beginning. So name me one thing around you. I mean, the table you're sitting at, if you're sitting at a table, everything around you is created. I want you to look at your fingers. You're not even responsible for your fingers or your fingernails.
So the claim is that everything is created. Is that's your
before we go into before we go into that, I just have to define what a god is. So you know where I come from. So to me, the definition of a god, because if you ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different answers. The definition of a god is basically the beginning, like the singularity of why everything exists. So it doesn't have to be a bearded man in the sky. It's the singularity.
Hold on, Xeno. Can I ask you a question though? Because terms matter, right? Clearly, like an atheist that just takes to some singularity there is just going to disagree with you if that's all it is. So I'm wondering, like, clearly, like, there's going to be some intentional states or some mindedness to it, right? Like, let's just at least be fair.
No. Why?
Okay, then we're going to waste a bunch of time you talking about something that you semantically call God if it's absent intended creation, because I don't care about an input output. It's on par with some naturalistic input output perspective of a singularity, right? We won't be talking about the same thing, and we'll waste a lot of each other's time.
About whether you care about it.
I'm talking about. Look,
I didn't think this conversation was about what you cared about.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about something that's hold on, Xeno. If you're talking about something and you're going to just admit, and I might be steering this farther than I should. I just want to make sure. Like, if you're just going to define it with those properties, a naturalist is not, or an atheist is not going to disagree with that. And so we're not going to really make much progress, because we would, the semantic battle there is like, we're pretty much talking about the same thing, but you would be labeling it God, which would confuse and obfuscate a lot of the conversation. Now that we've identified, right, that potentially what you're talking about is something without a mind, then me and Kenneth probably won't disagree with you, right?
I don't come on here. I hear you. I don't come on here to try to entertain and try to WWE it up. So what you're talking about, I'm not trying to obfuscate. I'm literally saying that is what I believe a God is. And if we were playing chess, I think you got checkmated. So you have to admit that my God does exist, correct? And that's fine.
No. Okay, I don't care about what grunt you use to label the thing that someone else also believes in. Like, look, like the fact that like if it's just look, I'm gonna show you why that's really bad reasoning, right?
Okay,
because like if I just because a lot of what you said at the beginning there had to do with contingency. Okay, so you had to do with there's things that yes, precisely. So hold on, let me at least get through the thread. So when we talk about something that's dependent upon something else, right? You're gonna lead this back to there needs to be this necessary thing, right? That's fine. You can run that argument, say there must be this necessary item, X, that gives way to all contingent things, P or whatever. That's fine. But if you just tell me that the necessary thing that you lead it down to has no intentional thoughts or minds, there's a lot of atheist philosophers like Graham Oppy, people out there that take to this a very similar position, but they're atheists. They think God does not exist. So to say that like you checkmated, which by the way, that's not what these conversations are about. They're not about one-upping. They're about a dialectic at which we can come to an agreement, right? So that's not what it's about. But when you make that statement, that person is just going to go, look, you're labeling something God, that I'm labeling the antithesis of that, right? So how much progress do you think you can make if now we're just in a semantic battle about fucking grunts that we make with our stupid mouths, right? That seems really not productive from my perspective, and I think other people would agree.
All right, I hear you. That's your perspective. I've had many conversations with Matt Dillahunty. I just got off of Talk Heathen. We've made tons of progress. Well, not with Matt Dillahunty because he's a narcissist. But the thing is with Talk Heathen, we've made tons of progress. So the thing is, what I want you to take this as is, look, what I'm defining God as is what I see it as. Who are you to tell me that it's not? Just like if you ask 10 different people, they'll ask.
Yeah, because it's mind dependent. I can tell you really easily. Mind dependent definitions is not what's real. It's that simple. Just because you think it in your head and you define it that way is not mind independent. The difference is that what is actually the God thing, when you label some other thing in your head that way, that's just your subjective opinion. That doesn't elucidate why it's real. But I'll let Kenneth go on.
Mike didn't jump in and say that there is no cause. He's sort of giving you all of the enough rope to hang yourself with this argument you're making. He's asking you, how do you demonstrate that this cause is God? He's asking you how do you get from cause to God?
Fine.
Well, Xeno, more importantly, if you define your God as the same thing as me, right, which is like some necessary thing, I don't call that God, and the only thing left on the table is some dumb semantic battle about words.
Yeah,
I'm not interested.
Mike's not telling you
so not interested in that. I'd move on to another caller.
Mike is literally just trying to set this up so that a conversation is possible.
All right, I understand that, and let's make a conversation possible. So let's go from a different approach. So
no, let's not go from a different approach. Let's stick with what you put on the table and explain how you get from cause to God.
Wait, I'm sorry.
We're not going to go in a different direction.
Well, is it minded?
On the table, you're going from you're saying you're in the bathroom, you're hitting the bowl, you're thinking about everything that you observe has a cause. Therefore, there must be some ultimate cause, and you're calling that God. Is that a fair representation of what you put on the table?
Yeah, now that's what you presented was very good, and I think we could move from that. So I would agree with everything except ultimate. So okay. I'm very different from my position is very different from most positions where God is ultimate and omnipotent. I'm not the one to say God is omnipotent and ultimate, but however, God is still the reason why we have gravity, time.
Xeno.
Wait. So you put that out there. Okay, so you're saying that there's this thing that is responsible for a number of what we could call attributes of reality. Now demonstrate that that's true.
All right. So we can reduce things to absurdity. So, for example, when you look in the mirror, you have eyes. Are you responsible for? I need simple answers. Are you responsible for your eyes?
I am not responsible for my eyes. Okay, keep going.
Okay, so are you responsible for the cells in your body?
Again, no.
Reductio ad absurdum. Okay, so you're.
I don't think you know. You're throwing terms around it, and it doesn't seem like you know what you're talking about.
Can I plant just one thing real fast? Is that we've already granted all this, right? So this is the issue I'm having. We're trying.
I don't have to go through that.
Oh, Xeno, hold on. Look, the only thing I care about. We can make this really easy. The only thing I care about. Do you think that thing that all this leads you to has intentions and a mind or not? Yes or no?
No, I do not.
Then I don't give a shit about the conversation. You can talk to Kenneth. I don't care about your definition that does not I don't care about your like fringe view on God if you define it the way an atheist does. I don't care. It's so not worth my time. Might be worth Kenneth's time, not worth my time. I think we've pinpointed the issue very, very, very succinctly.
I'll tease this out just a second more. So, okay, so we can observe that causality is a thing here in reality, and that effects have causes. Now what?
Yes. So effects have causes. Now, where are we going to name the very beginning? What are you going to name that singularity? Which is that determines everything that's in front of you right now. Would you just decide that? Would you decide to call it the first domino? I decide to call it God. Other people decide to call God a bearded man in the sky. I disagree. Okay, well, but what would you call like the beginning? What would you call the beginning?
Are you suggesting that there is a first cause?
A first cause for what we're going through. I just demonstrated that if you reduce everything, right, you didn't just appear, like your fingers didn't just appear, you know, gravity didn't just appear, the planets didn't just appear.
Right. I'm asking you I'm asking you a really simple question. Are you saying that there is a first cause that wasn't caused?
No.
Okay.
I am not saying
okay.
that.
All right. So
because
how far back are we tracing this? Like I'm trying to pin down what exactly it is that you're talking about.
We're talking about a God, and I had to define what a God is first, so we know what we're talking about. Do you want me to define God again?
Well, but right now you're talking about causality, and so far what's been put on the table is a thing that caused all other things, but that it doesn't have a mind or intention.
That's God. No, it doesn't have to have a mind or intention. That's what you can't checkmate me there. Because it doesn't have to have a mind. No.
Okay, listen. Let's
there's no meaningful distinction.
Perfectly clear here. So I'm not trying to checkmate you, dude. There's no. This isn't a competition. There's no element of, dude. Okay, listen. You're gonna have to stop talking over us when we're trying to have a conversation with you. Okay, and we're gonna try to do the same courtesy with you. So this isn't some ego-driven thing. We're not here on the show trying to just like own theists or people. You know, we're trying to get, like Mike said, we're trying to get closer to true conclusions. All right, we're trying to engage in a process by which we can believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. All right, that's what this show is about. Okay, so if you start talking about some great cause that caused all other things, that doesn't have a mind or intention, I'm just trying to like whittle down to like what are you talking about? And then it's going to become a game of how do you demonstrate that this thing exists?
And worse than that, Xeno, what you're positing, Xeno, right? When you give these things and you remove these attributes of like intentionality, right? And desires, hopes, mental states, minds, that type of a thing, right? It's on a par with some cosmological model that is not using God, right? Whether it has an actual infinity, whether it doesn't, it's no different, right? You would just actually have to, instead of just asserting it, actually make some novel predictions in the future at which we could test it, because you're giving just a naturalist theory of how the world works based on causality. That is so uninteresting if you want to put that up as God, because no scientist who is using these models to come to, hey, I'm looking at the world and I'm funneling this back to the singularity is going to go, oh, that thing's just fucking called God. Because now there's no meaningful conversation between an atheist and a theist if you're just going to obfuscate the conversation by just taking P and not P in the conversation and combining them as P. That's so it's the definition of obfuscating what the actual meaningful distinction is between a theist and an atheist. Like, to me, it's boggling my mind that you would think propping up something that's on par with a naturalist theory on how the world works somehow elucidates to God. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and if you were to look at like the literature in cosmology and in physics, you're not going to find people who really know what they're talking about with this stuff going, God did it. Or exactly what Mike said. They're not gonna label things as a God, because that's sort of a conversation ender when it comes to our understanding of what we're actually talking about.
Well, can I get a chance to respond? Because
Yeah, of course. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. All right. So all I'm saying here is that it doesn't make for an interesting conversation. And I'm here to talk about truth. I'm not here to talk about what's interesting. I do find it incredibly boring. I don't believe God has intention. I don't believe God has a mind.
All right.
I know that's outside of our scope of reality, but we have to accept there are things in this world.
I don't think you know that. I don't think you know that. I think you're pulling that out of your ass. So listen, since you just reminded us that you're here to talk about truth and how our epistemology is flawed. Why don't we just touch on that real quick, and then we can move on to some other callers. So yeah, let us know how our epistemology is flawed.
Well, for starters, your co-host here is saying that it's not going to make for an interesting conversation. That's a part of his.
What? Stop with the preamble stuff. Just make your case. Just make your case. You called to talk about our epistemology is flawed. Put it out there. Go for it.
Why are you? Look, this conversation just went smoother on the other show, Skeptic.
I don't give a shit where it went smoother. I'm telling you, this is your opportunity to make your case. If you want to talk about how our epistemology is flawed, now's your chance to do it.
It's a red herring to your position that our epistemology.
Yeah, let's not even go down that road. Just go ahead and make your case. Our epistemology is flawed. Go.
I can't even get a word out. I'm just have some patience. It's okay, dude. So
go.
I'm just simply telling you, and I understand you disagree with what I think God is, because most of the answers you get about God.
This is your last opportunity.
This is still a preamble.
Last opportunity to talk about our epistemology.
This is still a preamble. Just tell us what it is. Yeah,
this is it. This is your moment. All right. You can talk about our epistemology being flawed, or we're going to move on. All right. Go for it.
In trouble with it. You guys are having trouble with the first cause. The first cause is God. There's causality.
I grant.
Stop. This has nothing to do with our epistemology. We're because it's become very clear that the conversation about first causes and all that stuff isn't going anywhere. So this is your opportunity to tell us how our epistemology is flawed, or we're going to move on.
Yeah, and Xeno, mind you, tell me what school of thought that I take. Am I an empiricist? Am I a rationalist? Am I a pragmatist? Tell me what school of thought and epistemology I take. Because if we're going to go to, if your claim is, right, that my epistemology is flawed, at least have the base 101 philosophy epistemology level of telling me what my school of thought is, right? And I've given you them. So you don't even have to guess. You have 3 to choose from there. There's more, but I'll give you 3 to choose from. Empiricist, rationalist, pragmatist. I'll give you 4. Skeptic. Which one would you say is my epistemic basis?
I can answer.
And then give me the flaws, because I'm helping you.
Oh my God. Dude, you obviously don't understand how the conversation works. You've already made your point. Now let me answer it.
Go ahead.
Are you done?
I'm waiting.
Is it safe to talk now?
Right. We'll move on if you don't have anything.
Xeno, go for it.
Holy shit. All right. Your epistemology is flawed because first, and I hope you guys understand what epistemology means. It's your thought processes. And so
that is not what epistemology means.
That's what epistemology is. All right, we can help you out first.
Layman terms, how you assess the world. Yes, that is in layman terms of how you assess the
world.
That
is not what epistemology is.
Down in depth. Oh my!
That is not what epistemology is.
Hey, hold on. Let me help you out. Xeno. What's the theory of assessing the world as opposed to what it is, which is knowledge, right? Because clearly, like you're not. Look, we're gonna get on a meta level of this, which is not important to what you believe. I would just urge you to look. That's fine. I will give you a principle of charity and saying that it's how we come to knowledge, and that's potentially what you meant. That's fine, okay? But to tell me that my epistemology is flawed, you're gonna have to look the way that you would do this. We're gonna move on to other callers because we have other callers. But what I would urge you to do, and I'll give you a chance to tell me why it's flawed. But tell me what axioms I take. Tell me what my school of thought and epistemology is, right? And then tell me, right? Do it on like an axiomatic level. Don't just like give me like, I think you think this because you're an atheist. Like no one who actually takes this seriously in epistemology would take you seriously, right? You're just talking out your ass. It's not a good thing to do.
I hear you. So you said you'd give me a chance to answer. So look, I understand epistemology is very simple. It's just a theory of knowledge with regards to the method, validity, and the scope. It's your epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes.
Yeah, that's the Google definition. Yes.
From opinion. All right, so that's just, the reason I said your epistemology is flawed. It's because you're an atheist. I never said I knew everything about you. I don't have to know everything about you. All I need to know is that you don't believe that God exists, correct?
And so, okay, so
well, hang on.
hold on,
let him
on.
do this. Let him do it. So, okay.
No, I'm gonna. Yes.
Now what?
So, no. How would saying yes? How would reserving your belief on that go towards your epistemology on what you believe?
I really want to hear him do this. So okay. So we're atheists. Therefore, what does that tell you about our epistemology?
Okay, here's what it tells you. I'll give you an analogy, right? If someone says they're a pedophile and they say yes, you know a lot about them already. So here's the thing. When you say you're an atheist, I'm not saying I know everything about you, but I do know quite a bit because I do know what we're discussing at hand is God, and you don't believe it. So
this has nothing to do with our epistemology. So this is it. Answer the question. What does us being atheists have to do with our epistemology?
Do you know what epistemology is?
Answer the question, or we're going to move on.
He's just asking you what you think.
What does us being atheists have to do with our epistemology?
He's not saying you're wrong. He's just asking you what you think, and you won't answer. Just answer.
Let him answer. Go ahead, Xeno.
All right. It's because it distinguishes your belief from opinion. That's why.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Belief
Go ahead.
versus opinion. All right. So we're talking about belief versus opinion. Is it your opinion that God doesn't exist, or is it your belief? Do you really believe God doesn't exist? But we have to define what God is. So it really matters, like what you think God is.
You're not, Xeno, you're not making a meaningful distinction. When you talk about opinion versus belief, right? When you talk about my belief,
you're so far over his head, Jmike. So Xeno, he's not prepared to have that conversation. Xeno, have you ever heard of the gumball analogy?
No, why don't you tell me what it is?
Okay, so if I say there's a gumball machine in front of us, like you and I were walking through like a shopping mall and we see a gumball machine, and somebody comes up to us and says there is an odd number of gumballs in that machine, and that guy hasn't counted the gumballs, hasn't opened up the machine. We have no idea. Like, there's no way for us to verify whether or not there's an odd or even number of gumballs in the machine. So if I say to that guy, you know what? I'm not convinced that your claim is true. Is that reasonable?
It just means you don't understand math.
If I'm,
it just means you don't understand math.
How does that mean I don't understand math?
But because you would understand the probability of there being odd is insanely high. And by the way, I'm a math, I'm a math nerd, but you would understand that.
Is the probability of the number being odd any higher than the probability of the number being even?
Yeah. I don't know if you understand math. Yes, that's true. Because look, you have all.
We have an unknown quantity of
chances that they're going to be even.
All right. So if the guy says, now I'm getting increasingly convinced that you are just trolling, because this is such an easy question. So if a guy tells me there is an odd number of gumballs in the machine, and I don't have any way of knowing if he has counted it, I don't have any way of knowing what the fuck's going on with this, and I say I am not convinced that the claim there is an odd number in there is true, if I'm not convinced of the guy's claim, is that a reasonable position for me to take? I'm not saying he's wrong. Oh, I think we lost him. I've lost Colin's studio here. Well, what a shame that we're never going to get to tease that one out. My goodness.
Look, it's fine. I was suspicious at some point to say, like, I don't really know. There's two things, I guess. My thought process was, one, I don't know that he was either tracking or was purposely not tracking for other reasons. But I won't go into the suspicion there. But what I will say is, if the person was genuine there, and they asked the distinction between opinion and belief there, I think like the better thing there is like knowledge versus belief, right? Because belief is going to be a component within knowledge. if I have a belief about something, like clearly that's my opinion, right? It doesn't actually elaborate whether or not I have some justified aspect to it and whether or not it's true. So to even get into that with him, I don't know that would have been fruitful.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have, but hopefully you call back and maybe we can continue it. But I would
we got
I'd
other
look
people
up
we can talk
epistemology.
to for sure.